All right, the big development still seems to be how the joint statement, the joint declaration was arrived at. Now we have some inside details on how a consensus was arrived at. Remember, there are 83 paragraphs in this joint statement. It runs into 37 pages. Of those 83, there was consensus in 47 of those 83 paragraphs. There wasn't any divergence between the various stakeholders, the various countries involved. The negotiators who were involved, led by Amitabh Kant, the Sherpa of the G20, they used a segmented consensus in a way. They were going paragraph by paragraph, segment by segment. So almost in more than half of the paragraphs, they were able to find consensus right away. For the remaining, when the negotiators sat, and he was ably supported, and he mentioned this yesterday in the press conference as well, by the likes of Nagaraj Naidu and Inam Gambhir and Amitabh Thakur, all members of the Foreign Service, all who are Russian language experts or Chinese language experts or Spanish language experts, who were helping find a common ground. The one thing that kept them in good stead was the Modi magic or the Modi guarantee. Foreign Minister Jaishankar referred to this, an incident involving the African Union and how the African Union was brought into the G20 fold. So the Modi magic and the Modi guarantee was also the secret sauce in a sense. So let me go across to Siddhant, my colleague, who's joining us with more details. I think the world is still waking up to and trying to figure out how, despite such contentious issues as not just the Russia-Ukraine war, but climate financing, debt restructuring, how is it that the negotiating team of the India Sherpa team, how were they able to find this consensus? Break it down for us, Siddhant.
Well, that's right, Zaka. And in fact, Zaka, the details that we are getting to know is that, perhaps we can tell our viewers that India has done a checkmate to the bloc. India has done a checkmate to the Western allies, those who were, focusing on war. Zaka, the details that we have is that 47 segments of consensus on which consensus were built. And very interestingly, Zaka, we were also told when the team of negotiators sat down, they discussed around the convergent consensus rather than divisive consensus. So, to start or to strike conversation with the negotiators from the other side, Indian side in a very beginning told them specifically that let's discuss the convergent consensus instead of divisive consensus. And believe me, Zaka, what we have managed to speak to people here, those who were involved in the negotiations, we have been told that in the start it was difficult, but by the end, almost all countries were on the same page, and in fact, every country left behind the divisive and bloc views. So this is what we have been told. So it's a big success, Zaka, and perhaps, a lot of efforts have been made. You named the IFS officers involved, the Sherpa team, the dream team they are being called right now. The IFS officers working day and night to prepare draft, to prepare convergent consensus draft, so that every country can be brought to the same page. So efforts were made, hours of negotiations took place, and last but not the least, Zaka, it's Modi magic which worked. It's the credibility of Prime Minister Modi, it's the decisive leadership of Prime Minister Modi, and the kind of agenda that India has put forth. When it comes to climate change, when it comes to digital public infrastructure, when it comes to the concerns of global South, that is something which in a way convinced the other countries to build consensus, to agree to the language which was presented by India, and at last each one of them signed, and there was a joint declaration which happened yesterday. So it's historic, Zaka, and the way this happened is which will go down in.
What is the sense you're getting from the Indian side as well as from particularly the G7 countries? There is some criticism that the language used on the Russia-Ukraine war does not directly name Russia. Some are saying it's diluted compared to the Bali Declaration. What is their counter to that?
Yes, that's right, Zaka. So the Ukrainians have reacted to it. They are not very happy, and they are also saying that the G7 countries should not consider it as their victory. Because one thing is for sure, Zaka, that wherever there is a mention of war, there is no mention of Russia in that paragraph. Also, Zaka, you know that how proactive actively Ukraine was lobbying to get invited for the G20 summit, and their high-level delegations also traveled to India so that to put some sort of a pressure so that India invite them for the G20 summit. But the line, Zaka, which India had drawn in a very beginning, we should congratulate Team India that till end also they maintained that line. They did not fall in any trap. They did not listen to anyone. It's India's presidency chair is with India, so India will decide the agenda, and that was decided very much at the time of the transfer of presidency. So Zaka, even before coming to the summit, Jake Sullivan made statement. Antony Blinken travelled from Kyiv. The spokesperson of all these G7 nations made one or the other statement regarding Ukraine. UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's office has pledged some amount for the Ukrainian grain. So a lot was going on in the backdrop, Zaka. It was really not easy. They may say that everybody cooperated and the consensus was built. But trust me, Zaka, we follow foreign policy. We know that what was going on in their minds. But despite that, getting them onto the table and making them to agree to the language of the draft which has been presented by India is something was unexpected, but India did it, Zaka. Now there's a counter narrative, Zaka, which I'm getting to know that this is only being done to save G20. If this hadn't happened, then G20 would have got finished. If the declaration wouldn't have happened, if this had not happened, then the BRICS or the other multilateral events would have gotten more powerful. So to save this entire multilateral forum, this has been done. So this kind of arguments are also something which we are getting to hear now. Back to you.
All right, Siddhant, we'll leave it at that. We'll see how this plays out for the remainder of the G20 session. Right now, the third and final session is happening right now. The one future session, after which the Prime Minister will have a working lunch with the French President. He, in fact, flew in after the first session yesterday. And thereafter, of course, there will be some press conferences by some of the visiting delegations. I want to try and make sense of what many are calling a historic declaration, the New Delhi Leaders' Declaration, which was formally adopted yesterday, 83 paragraphs, all of it adopted by consensus, to also make sense of this new economic corridor initiative that's been announced by India, along with the US, Saudi Arabia, UAE, and the Western European countries of France, Germany, and Italy.